Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Capricorn for February 2017. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, see what's new on my blog. I write about astrology and many other topics. I have either just posted or I'm about to post, depending on when you're watching this, a series on astrology and crystals. So crystals that are great for your sign. So what's going on in the month of February? We're dancing delicately between retrogrades. Mercury retrograde had happened in January. Venus retrograde is about to happen in March. The shadow period for Venus retrograde is very present. Venus rules love, beauty, and money. So this is really relevant to so many aspects of life because all of those things will be swirling in front of us to be focused on, for better and worse. And the highlight of the month is actually two eclipses. We know that eclipses are game changers. They bring in non-negotiable news, things that we don't really have much say in except to do something about. So the general recommendation for eclipse times is to be the spider. You know, you watch, I mean, we're in this society where better, more, now, faster, active, everything is the theme. And the spider doesn't do that. You ever watch a spider? They very busy, usually in the darkness, weave their webs, and then they chill out and they let the food come to them. So the eclipses always make me think of the spider, because even though the spider will jump on the thing it catches in its web, it will take action. It doesn't do a whole bunch of action once it's made its web. It hangs out and waits for the opportunities to come to them. So that's a huge theme that will be flavored by this Venus retrograde, which I'll get more involved with later. But first I want to talk about some things specific for Capricorn. I'm calling the theme of the month specifically for Capricorn, Avalanches of Abundance. And that is due to the solar eclipse in Pisces on February 26th at 8 degrees of Pisces. This is the last eclipse in the Pisces Virgo eclipse cycle that started at the beginning of 2015, so something getting wrapped up at this time. This is occurring as an opening in your house of money. And it's not just money, it's about abundance of everything. And we're going to get into more detail about what that looks like. But first, let's understand an eclipse as it is a new moon or a full moon in triplicate. Okay, so the solar eclipse it happens on a new moon. And so it's like all of the potential blessings, openings of a new moon that we have happen at every new moon, but it's times 3. The energy is in triplicate when we have an eclipse, so it carries more weight. So this opening is happening in this house of earned income. It's this house of values. It's this house of abundance. Having an opening here doesn't necessarily have to just be about money. There is an amazing book called Simplicity Parenting. And I feel like this book, Simplicity Parenting, has important messages, not just for parents, but for all people, because of what it teaches the parents to do for the kids and the results of the studies they've done. And this relates to the abundance of your second house, because it could be this simple abundance, okay? So one of the major premises of the book is to basically go through your children's things and get rid of most of them. And of those, keep some of the things not in their forefront and kind of swap out where they have less things. They have seen behavioral issues, sleep issues, health issues subside with using this method. And it's very interesting to watch that the same thing happens. So if a child is walking around seeming listless, not satisfied with anything, not really playing with anything, wanting more stuff, not knowing what they're doing, and you clear up their space, then what do? The first thing that they notice that happens across the board is the children go in and they start playing peacefully, happily, finding things that maybe they haven't seen in a while. It's like they got new things because they can never find their stuff because there's so much of it. They're peaceful, they're calm, they're playing, and they're actively engaged in play with their things. And this is such a powerful message for us as well, because how many people have tons of stuff everywhere, stuff in boxes, we don't even know what we have. The clutter is interfering with our energy field. It's interfering with new things coming in for us because we have so much stuff we don't have any room. So this energy of simple abundance, of keeping things around us only that we love, that carry importance to us, that carry great functionality, that we like to look at, that make us feel good, and releasing the rest. So this is a really good thing to focus on in general, but especially dancing here in the retrograde energies, because it's making you ask the question, what's important to you? And maybe the answer to this question is different than what it was a year ago, what it was a month ago. You know, maybe you're a person who's made a bunch of money and you wake up and you're like, turns out don't really care about that because I want my life back. I want my relationships back. I want the things that I would focus on instead of making money to be in my forefront. So many parents and people even who don't have children will focus on making money only to find themselves dissatisfied, you know? And that's part of what this is bringing up. Could go the other way around too. Could be that you haven't had money forever and you're kind of sick of it and you really want to have a new experience and you don't mind trading some of your time and some of the time you have with people to activate your earning potential. You know, there isn't any one right way to do this, and I personally don't have any judgment on how people walk in the world with a lot of money or no money or whatever. You know, it's how we're here to play. We're each here to play in different realms and try things on and see how they work for us, and those answers are different for different people at different times. But this value system, this focus on what is abundance to you and refining that is one of the themes that's coming up now. So that is the solar eclipse. The lunar eclipse is occurring for most of you. Let's see. Late degree is in the 7th house. Okay, so either way, whether you're an early, middle, or late degree Cap placement, the lunar eclipse, full moon lunar eclipse at 22 degrees of Leo, it's happening on February 10th. It's happening for you in one of the partnership houses. The 7th and 8th houses are the partnership houses. I always explain these things because if you haven't already noticed, I'm a teacher before I'm an astrologer. I love to teach people things that bring me great joy, and many people don't care about learning the placements of astrology. But for the people that do care, they really appreciate that, and that's where my heart lies, you know, in really helping to use this beautiful art and science. So these partnership houses have to do with how we relate to other people. The 7th house is the more, I don't want to call it a superficial. It's not necessarily superficial. There's just the basic one-on-one connection with someone else. The 8th house is you and your stuff and the other person and their stuff. So it's like the partnership, but with the resources, with the drama, with the karma, with the, you know, all of that kind of stuff, with your family and your in-laws and all of that stuff, with the bank, you know, people that you connect with and all the things you bring and they bring and the entrenchment that goes on there. So most of you will experience this lunar eclipse in the 8th house, early and middle degree placements. A reminder about early and middle degree placements. The sun is in a sign for 30 days. If you break that 30 days up into increments of 3, 10, 10, and 10, the first 10 days, usually that correlate with, like for Capricorns, this is going to be the December born Capricorns essentially, and maybe like the first day or so of January. So that's the early degree. And then the next 10 days of the sign, essentially like the first 10 days of January then-ish, would be middle degree. And then the rest of the sign is the late degree placements. And this is the same if you're watching for your rising sign. So early degree rising sign for Caps, 0 to 9 degrees of Capricorn, middle is 10 to 19, late is 20 to 29. This actually does make a difference. It's a pain in the neck to go into it because it makes the reading a little bit more complicated, and some people, like I said, don't care. And it confuses them. But if you look at the chart of an early degree placement, it actually looks quite different than that of a late degree placement. Kind of want to show this to you, but I don't know if it will come up right on the screen. But anyway, you can take my word for it that the charts look different, and that's why I mention it. So the late degree placements are going to have this lunar eclipse, this fullness, this coming to completion, coming to fruition, possibly drama, possibly something good, possibly an ending occur in the house of relationships. And the rest of you have it in your relationships with resources house. So for many people, this is going to actually end some relationships. Just the literal translation of a lunar eclipse, something ends, boom, it's a relationship, it's over. But many more people are going to have a dimension of a relationship change. You know, where you're moving forward with someone in some way, and then all of a sudden, now you're working with a different level. So maybe an example, like let's say you go into partnership with someone and you start out not as with a lesser ownership because you have to earn some capital in the company and maybe the other person put in more money. So you start out kind of paying off your part of the partnership, and then maybe this eclipse could bring the ending of that imbalance within the partnership, and now you are on an equal footing with your business partner. Some dimension of how you related to each other ends, but it doesn't mean that the relationship ended. You're now moving together in a different way. Same thing goes for like a romantic relationship. Could be that you and your partner find out that you're having a baby. Now the pre-baby part of your relationship has ended and the new with baby part has begun, you know? So that's what it's like. A dimension of relationship ends. So if you have weak links in your partnerships, they're very likely to show up both with the retrograde of Venus, because Venus rules love and money and it tends to bring up weak links, and the eclipses. All of these transits bring up weak links. So that's why we can't always say exactly what's going to happen when we look at someone's chart, because we don't always know where the weak links are and what is having to be brought up now at this time. But we can say that when we have powerful transits occur, that especially a challenging one like a lunar eclipse, although this lunar eclipse is well aspected, it still will likely bring drama and stress or at bare minimum excess of emotion, for better or worse. You know, so if you have a weak link in one of your partnerships, it's probably going to show up either from the eclipses or from the Venus retrograde or both. We've got this long story of also Saturnian tests, Saturn and Venus making different aspects, testing the solidity of your relationships and your money and your foundation. So these are some things that are specific for Capricorn. Now I want to talk more about this Venus retrograde, the shadow period, what that looks like, and talk about some sweet dates and challenging dates for the month of February. I'm calling the general theme of this month for all signs the tiptoe water test. You know, when you go to the beach or somewhere where there's water, and rather than just jumping right into the water, you stick your toe in, just the tip of your toe, to see what the water temperature is. And unless you're in a very warm climate, usually the water is kind of cold, right? And so maybe you have to put your feet in and then get up to your knees. It makes me think of when I was little. I grew up in New York City, and my cousin, who was like a sister to me more than my cousin, and she was a little bit older than me, and she would taunt me, and she'd say, "Stop being such a sissy, just jump in the water." And you know, if you've ever gone swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, it's very cold. So I would put my toe in and say, "Oh gosh, I don't want to go in," you know, and then it would take me time to get used to it. And then she would jump right in. And I'm not saying that in general there's one way of being better than the other. But when we're talking about astrological rhythms at play, this is very poignant because there is a time to jump right in. And there's a time to do the tiptoe water test and go in and get used to it with your ankles, and then slowly go in and get used to it with your knees, you know, etc. And that's the time that we're working with in February, because even though we technically don't have any planets, personal planets, meaning the ones closest to us, like Mercury, Venus, Mars, are usually the ones we talk about being retrograde, the personal planets, We don't have any of that happening technically in February, but we just got past Mercury retrograde and its shadow period, and we've started Venus retrograde shadow period. Venus goes retrograde from March 4th through April 15th. Venus retrograde happens around every year and a half. I definitely recommend you listen to my Venus retrograde video because Venus rules love, beauty, and money. So everything about relationships and finances and business decisions and artistic journeys and beauty decisions all are housed under this Venus retrograde energy, even in February, because the shadow period has started. So I go into a massive amount of detail about what to do, what not to do, and why in that video that I'm not going to cover in this. So you definitely need to listen to that as a supplement to this video and really pay attention to that for February, March, and April. So when we're in a shadow period of a retrograde like we are in February, right? It doesn't go retrograde till March 4th, but the shadow period started at the end of January. So the whole month of February, every day we get closer to March, is getting deeper in this Venus retrograde energy. It's kind of like when you go to the beach. If you haven't crossed over the bridge yet to the island that the beach is on, you start seeing little beachwear, tourist places and little tiki huts and things that feel beachy, but you're not at the beach yet, but the beach vibe is there, So that's what a shadow period is like. It's like it starts acting as if you're there, even though you're not officially. And it's very relevant because the same rules pretty much apply for the shadow period as they do for the retrograde. And that is to not jump into anything that's a long-term commitment if you can possibly help it. Now, this is doubly so because this is a rule of the retrogrades, and this is also one of the things that we talk about with eclipses. February holds 2 eclipses. We have a full moon eclipse on February 10th, and we talked about that some. That's the lunar eclipse at 22 degrees of Leo. And we've got that solar eclipse on February 26th, that's at 8 degrees of Pisces. So when we talked about that as well, so the general energy of eclipse is kind of like that be the spider energy. You weave your web and then you let things come to you. And you act as is necessary, but not unnecessarily and not without caution. So that's the story of the energy of February is, you want to tiptoe in, you want to get used to the water, you want to try things on. It's a wonderful time for going back over things. So anything that starts with the word or the prefix RE, redoing, resting, couples therapy is something that's amazing for retrogrades. Going back to romantic places that you've been with your partner before, bringing the magic back, spending more time with your partner, anything that you're kind of returning back to within your relationship. And it doesn't have to only be a challenging thing. Sometimes Venus retrograde can bring up arguments and problems. If there are weak links in your relationship or your money space, they're going to show up because that's the job of the retrograde. But if there's sweetness there as well, then sometimes a return of the magic occurs. So it's a good time to spend more time with your honey. It's not the best time to take on a new romantic relationship or a new financial relationship if you can help it, because you have these rose-colored glasses on as it relates to money and love and beauty and artistic things, expensive items and things like that. You're not seeing clearly, so you don't want to make big decisions. But trying things on, experimenting, making small decisions, being cautious is great. Learning and education is wonderful. Trying on something for a new profession, getting some information or education that might prepare you to do something in the future. All of that is fine for the retrogrades. We just want to keep our commitments to between 4 and 6 months, if possible. Also the same goes for a move. If you have to move or you're trying to do something different, when you move someplace, go into temporary lodging. Don't get there and then buy a house. You're not seeing clearly is the whole point. And when Venus goes direct, you'll look at everything totally differently. So you want to make sure there's wiggle room with the arrangements you've made so that when you see things differently, you're not locked into too much that you then can't shift. See, that's part of the point. So it's an artist's wonderland. Retrogrades are wonderful for doing art. And they can even be great for selling art, especially when you're going back to people or doing things before that you've done for promoting it. Backing up files is one of the single most important things you can do during any retrograde. So many people are going to have their important things lost during retrograde. So if you want to spend the time doing this proactively, I always make these, do these videos early so that you can get prepared for the time. As soon as you're hearing this, it would be good for you to be backing up files and backing up anything and seeing to security and just kind of getting everything, all your ducks in a row that way. Some sweet energies that will be present, and you can see more about why I'm calling these sweet energies, what planets are at play, etc. when you sign up for my free email newsletter. So if you go to anniehelpsyou.com and you sign up for my free email newsletter, I do a write-up a month early, a written version of the energies ahead with more details about what goes on the certain days that make certain days bring sweetness, and then the challenging days. So the sweet energies are on the 9th, 10th, 11th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 20th, 21st, 23rd, and 26th. Okay, so 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 16, 20, 21, 23, 26. Now also remember, when I give you these dates, that we can experience transits before or after the actual day they occur. So it's like the days around these days, you can feel the energies that are true to the transits occurring on those days. Before I give you the challenging days, I also want to remind you, if you have already signed up for my free email newsletter and you're not receiving my monthly reports, there is some sort of glitch in many email services that put group emails into your social or promotions folder. So I send these things out like clockwork, like around a month early. Every month I always have, and I will continue to do this. So if you're not getting them, it's possible that they're going either to spam, to your social or promotions or events folders, and you're not even aware of it. So look in those folders and do a search for Annie Botticelli, and you should find some there, very likely. And then you move them into your inbox to let your Gmail or whatever it is, Gmail is infamous for this, know that you want those things into your inbox. Okay, so I've had this happen quite a bit. Okay, so the challenging days are the 2nd, the 5th, 10th, 22nd, 26th, and 27th. 2nd, 5th, 10th, 22nd, 26th, 27th. You might notice that some of these dates are ones I listed for the nice transits, and that is true because there are some challenging aspects that are happening at the same time as there are sweet aspects. So you might get, a mixed bag there. So the themes for the month: tiptoe water test, avoid the deep plunge, try things on, do things short term. You can make decisions as they relate to moving some things along, but not big launches, not big new things, not investing tons of money unless you have it to spare. Definitely check out my Venus retrograde video so you can understand more. The fact that Venus is in Aries through the month is going to make people want to be rambunctious and impulsive, and that's adding to this energy where you're going to want to do something, and it may or may not be the best thing to do. So be the spider. Let things come to you and leave wiggle room with how you activate those potentials. Definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, see my offerings. I teach an astrology apprenticeship program, a course on creating successful online business if you want to be free of your geography and work online. I also have a new coach certification course that includes my online business course if you'd like to be a coach as your profession. I always have new things on my blog, so check it all out at anniehelpsyou.com, and I will see you next month. Bye.